Good morning, good evening, good afternoon, whatever it is for you. Welcome back to a first Descendant video. This is a new series that I'm starting from zero to hero. Welcome to episode 1. We're gonna be focusing on alt Freyna today, and I will showcase all of her builds from zero all the way up to hero. Starting with the base build, without an energy activator, without a catalyst. When you get ultimate Freyna out of the oven, you can instantly start within dungeons and the open world, or of course, as you see in the background, take out Colossi all the way up to hard Swamp Walker within 10 seconds. And of course, I will showcase the fully maxed out builds as well. So let's jump right in and let's start with the basic boss build. This is without an energy activator. This is without an extra catalyst in there. This is just utilizing everything that base ultimate Freyna comes with whenever you get her out of the oven. And this is the build that you want to rock with, and we are building around Venom Injection. Venom Injection is the newest addition to Ultimate Freyna. This is an Ultimate Freyna Transcendent mod. You can only use her on her alt version, and this is when using a skill, continuously consume resource to grant self-toxic sense. While Toxic Sense is active, hitting an enemy with a firearm or a skill inflicts corrosion. And this will turn R2 into Venom Injection. It's all about the Toxic Sense and the corrosion. The Toxic Sense will give us a max skill power modifier increase of 66%, a max toxin resistance increase of 250%, a max shield recovery per second of max 5%, and a purification activation rate of 30%. This will give us an insane amount of survivability and damage output with R4. Corrosion, what we will put on the enemy is a toxic resistance reduction of minus 25%. Because we of course shooting with R4, we are the toxic queen in the game, this will boost our damage by quite a lot. The max corrosion activation rate is 45% and the duration is 3 seconds. But because we keep applying that toxic, because we keep applying that venom injection, that corrosion will stay up. And this is what the build is surrounding and what we're building towards. With all of the already imprinted catalyst, we can just go straight up into power. You can go for Tech Specialist, upgrading your Tech modifier by 76.1%, Toxic Specialist, upping your Toxic skill power by 81.2%, then go for Tech Amplification. That is one of the new mods that has been added with the mid-season update when Alt Freyna went live as well. Same as for the Toxic Amplification. These two mods will give you a minus critical hit damage of 140% and a minus 140% critical hit rate. But because we're not building into crits, this gives us so much more extra power. I call them the anti-crit mods or the anti-crit build. And then for our survivability, because we are using the venom injection, we continuously consume resources to grant self-toxic sense. If we then change our HP around to shield with the overwhelming shield, this will use shield to activate venom injection. But because venom injection also gives us an extra shield recovery time, this will kinda cancel each other out, or at least will not do that much damage, and you can tank a decent amount of damage, and that gives you the opportunity to face tank any Colossi all the way up to hard Swamp Walker, take them out within 10 seconds. Overwhelming shield reads fix max HP at 1 and increases max shield by 26.8% of max HP. The increased shield can be further increased by other buffs. And that's why next to this, we're using a little bit of extra shield with the increased shield of 48.4%. This is just getting up to the model capacity of 60, as that is our cap if we're not using an energy activator, as this is the base build. And that is pretty much it. If you build this build out, if you copy this, you can instantly start taking out Colossi, getting some extra Amorphs, or even hunting down better Slayer pieces, because yes, we can also take out Hard Pyro within 10 seconds. And then of course, for our skill module, you can go for whatever you want. Mid-air maneuvering, the normal kicking. I went for long distance maneuvering, but this is all up to you, whatever your own playstyle is. And then of course we have our base dungeon and open world build. Whenever you get Freyna out of the oven, you can make this build instantly. Don't worry about anything. Dive into copper mining, dive into those 400% dungeons, and get your ultimate Freyna. Catalyze, this is just a base build to help you get started. Of course, we are working around contagious. When an enemy inflicted with room 0 trauma is killed, a contagious of room 0 trauma surrounds it. And that just jumps over and keeps jumping over. You only have to put 2 skills in a room and everything just disappears. Again, you can choose whatever you want for your skill module. Go for long distancing, mid-air maneuvering. It's whatever you enjoy within the game. Then we go over our skill expansion. This is one of the things that I think is important to get some more skill effect range. When we apply our skill, our 1 or our 3 that we kinda wanna keep spamming around, or making sure that we can completely cover an area. And that's why skill effect range with the skill expansion module is a very, very important module to use on even a base build for open world and or dungeons. Then of course we have our damage outputs, we have focus on tech, and we have focus on toxic. We chose to go for focus on toxic and focus on tech because this also gives us on skill cooldown a total of 12.2%, what will help out spamming our 1 and our 3 ability a little bit more. And then of course, because we want to spam our 1 and our 3 around, we're going for nimble fingers, giving us a skill cooldown of 25.6%. And we're of course going for an increased HP of 218.5% to give us some survivability. And that's pretty much the whole setup of the build. Contagious of course changes all our skills around and gives us room 0 trauma that deals continuous damage. When an enemy with room 0 trauma is killed, inflicts room 0 trauma on nearby enemies. The room 0 trauma continuous damage is skill power times 188.2%. The damage ticks are every second and the duration is 6 seconds. And contagious range when killed is 6 meters. The duration doesn't really matter that much, especially not on the base build, as it will just jump over. The moment that the enemies are taken out by the room 0 trauma pool, it jumps over to the next one and refreshes that duration of course. And that's exactly what's happening to all of the other skills. They're all added an extra room 0 trauma, and whenever an enemy nearby is taken out, the room 0 trauma will jump over. And this is pretty much the overview of the base dungeon open world build, where you can start with and get your ultimate Freyna catalyzed. And then of course the fully maxed out build for the dungeons and or the open world. I'm still utilizing contagious. I like contagious. It spreads around. You can do a decent amount of damage with not that much effort within the game. Again, you can go for whatever skill module you want to go for, long distancing, mid maneuvering, whatever you like to go for. I went for MP collector. Whenever we take an enemy out, we have a 17% chance to get our MP back. I went for toxic amplification. Of course, getting some extra toxic skill power in. I went for focus on tech to get some extra tech skill power in. And then the only change that we made versus the base dungeon build is that we changed the extra toxic skill power for power increase. And why are we doing this? Because this gives us an extra applied value of skill power. Now we have skill power on the list, we have toxic skill power, and we have tech skill power modifier. These are 3 different applied values that we can do to our enemies. If we would, for example, change power increase away and change this around back to an R and get our focus on toxic back on, you will see in the list that we will lose 65% skill power, but we're upping our toxic skill power by 77.2%. If we save this, you will see in the list that skill power is gone. The only skill power that we have is toxic skill power and tech skill power modifier. After testing, this toxic skill power increase of 77% is less than the extra 65% of power increase. And that's why you want to remove focus to toxic and get power increase back on the build. This will add another 65% skill power, will remove that 77.2% toxic skill power, but overall will give you more damage output. This is the extra damage that we went for, and the rest of the build is quality of life. We're going for the skill cooldowns with nimble fingers and MP conversion. We're going for the extra range with skill expansion and maximize range, and then we chose to go for double HP mods because we are of course utilizing the Slayer set, what will make us a little bit more squishy. If you feel comfortable, you could even change one of these HPs around for some extra damage output, but the double HP modules will be better if you combine that with Slayer, as that hands down will be the best choice for your external components. And this is pretty much the overview of the build. And now we come to the fully built boss build. Again, we are going over with Venom Injection. We are utilizing the new Ultimate mod with Venom Injection. Of course, that will change us around to Overwhelming Shield, to get our extra shield in, to get a little bit more survivability, and because Venom Injection continuously consumes resources, it will consume your shield, but because we will have our shield recovery modifiers active, this won't be as much. Because we're building into shield, we are going into increased shield, but also we're going into HP. And you would wonder, why would you go into HP while you're using Overwhelming Shield? As you're going to fix your HP at 1. And you're absolutely right, HP wouldn't make sense, but this increased HP will give us more total shield than any other extra shield mod in the game, as of course, this will give us a 26.8% of max HP. And if we go back, you'll see my shield at this time is 8,500. If we go back to the build, remove this HP, and add one of the shields mod to that. The highest shield mod, of course, is HP conversion, but we will lose some HP for that. So let me showcase this. We will put our extra shield back on. We will get an extra 158% shield, but it's a minus 52.4% HP. If we save this, we'll go back, you'll see we have 6.5k shield, where before we had 8.5k shield. But if we now change this shield mod away for a different shield mod, let me spell shield correctly. Shield mod, for example, weighing the scales, this will give us an extra 58.1% max shield. If we save it now and go back, we have again 6.5k. So it will always be better to remove the shield mods and just go for your basic HP increase, as that will give you more survivability. Everything else will be damage output. We are going for the new mods Toxic Amplification and Tech Amplification. We're going for Venom Synthesism because that will give us an extra toxic skill power of 10.2%. We're going again for power increase. As I just showcased with the dungeon open world build, this will give us an extra applied skill value with the skill power. We're going for tech specialist and of course going for dangerous ambush. This will give us a lot of extra skill power, especially when you immobilize an enemy. This will almost be 50% extra skill power. The moment the Colossi goes to his knees, you will shred him down. Again, you can go for whatever you like as your skill module, long distancing, mid-air maneuvering, kicking, whatever you enjoy within the game. And of course, we went for spear and shield, not really because I need the defense, but it's because that little extra skill power increase of 8.1%. And that's pretty much the whole overview of the build. Let's go over to the last build, and that will be the 400% dungeon build. You can go for a bunch of different setups with this. I chose to go for Venom Synthesis. You can even run it without the Transcendent module, or you can run it with Contagious. Is whatever you like. The 400% dungeons are so dense with enemies that doesn't really matter what build you're using. And at the end, we're always fighting 2 elites in the 400% dungeons. And you of course want to run this with a team or within matchmaking. So 9 of the 10 times you will be fighting those 2 elites in a group of 4. Venom Synthesis will make sure that we are faster within those dungeons, but also will make sure that we won't remove the extra damage multiplications that the rework of Ultimate Freyna brought. If we hover over R1, and you'll see that Room Zero Trauma deals a continuous damage and applies panic to the nearby enemy. Panic is a continuous damage of skill power times 154.6%. So this is another extra damage value that you can apply to an enemy. But all of the skills have a different one, where R1 has Panic, where R2 has Despair, where R3 has Decay, and where R4 has Nightmare. They are all exactly the same. It will give you that extra continuous damage of skill power times 154.6%, but there are 4 different values. You can apply so much more damage upon those elites at the end and shred through them even faster. That's why I'm using Venom Synthesis, running a little bit faster and taking out those elites at the end, because that's what it's all about. All the mobs will get wiped out with or without a Transcendent module. So where do you want that extra damage then? At the end versus those elites. And the only difference between the dungeon build is that we of course changed around to Venom Synthesism, and we went for an extra tech amplification because we don't need MP Collector or any MP resources. There are so many enemies in the 400% dungeons that you can just shred through them and you keep picking up MP. It's almost impossible to not pick up MP. So that's the only change that we made versus our dungeon build. Contagious and MP Collector on our fully built dungeon and or open world build, and the 400% one, the only thing we changed around is tank amplification, and of course change our Transcendent mod to Venom Synthesis to do a lot more damage against those elites when you're fighting in a group. So to go over the mods real quick, we're going all in damage. Tech amplification, toxic amplification, focus on tech, and power increase to give us that extra damage output. The rest of the build is all quality of life with the double HP mods, the double range mod, and then of course the double cooldown mod to make sure that we spam our skills, especially on this Venom Synthesis build, as it won't jump over as easy as Contagious does. So that's the whole overview of the build, and those are all of the builds of Ultimate Freyna. And all of this is of course supported with external components. on every single version of the build, even on the base boss build and or the base dungeon open world build, I am using Slayer. Slayer set is hands down the best set that you can go for every single external component. It will make you a little bit more squishy. That's why we're going for the double HP mods and gives us still a 13,500 HP. That's more than enough for me. For the Slayer pieces, you want to go for MP recovery out of combat and max MP for the auxiliary. You want to go for max MP and MP recovery in combat for your Slayer. You want to go for defense and MP recovery modifier for your memory. And at last, and this is an important one, what usually isn't really an important one, but this is your processor, as we can find max shield and shield recovery modifier, what helps you out a ton on the Freyna boss builds. And why are we using the full Slayer set? Because it will give us 9% extra rounds per magazine, what will apply for our fourth. It will give us an extra skill power of 26.1%, and this boosts your damage so much. You cannot really get any other modules together to put out this skill power what Slayer does. That's why we went for the double HP mods and chose for Slayer. If you don't have Slayer, of course you can go for the normal external components. I would then remove one of your HP mods to make sure that you still have some extra damage output, but Slayer is hands down the best way to go with the double HP mod combination. And then of course we have our Reactor. This Reactor is the reactor that I use for my open world / dungeon builds. I went for skill effect range to make sure that we cap out our range, and I went for the toxic skill power boost ratio. I would love to see toxic and tech skill power boost ratio on there, but the skill range is good enough, making sure if we open up our info that we are at max skill range of ×2. For our second reactor, we of course wanna go for our extra damage to Colossi, and preferably again tech skill power or toxic skill power. I have skill duration up next to of course that golden skill attack when attacking Colossi, and that's the most important stat on your reactor when you're bossing. Make sure that you will always go for your highest stats with damage to Colossi, if you of course don't have a double combination of toxic and or tech. This is the one that you want to go for. I chose to go for the secret garden mounting, and these reactors are farmable this week from the time me recording this video. So if we go over our map and we open up our difficulty rewards, you will see toxic tech special rounds. If we open that up, it will be in Mirage Stone in Agna Desert. But we can go to this little spot right here and then just go around in circles and create your Velby farm again. The only thing you have to make sure is that you drop all of your skill expansion mods, so you make sure that your waterway is as tight as possible, hug the wall around it, and try to not take out the elite. Sometimes the elite walks into the water, but 9 out of 10 times you can just go in circles and collect so many reactors, especially now for the secret garden. And why am I so obsessed with the secret garden? If we open up the secret garden real quick, it is just one of the best weapons for Freyna. If we open it up, it's all about the unique ability. As if we use a tech skill, what almost everything is on Freyna, we grant the unique ability of pest control with a set chance. We have a trigger rate of 50% and can stack up 3 times. This will be on your screen next to your weapon, and it's pretty easy to keep up. And if we keep this up, and if we get to those 3 stacks, what happens quite a lot, we're getting an extra skill power of 16% per stack, giving you a total of 48% extra skill power by just holding this weapon. You want to make sure that you build fully into its unique ability and try to farm this weapon then 5 times. You need to find it for a base for the first time, and then you need to find it 4 more times to upgrade it. And why do you want to do that? Because if you upgrade it, of course the damages go up, the trigger rate of the pest control goes up all the way up to 50, and then the skill cost goes down as well, as the base secret garden will give you an extra skill cost, and that's kinda what you want to avoid. This is hands down the best weapon to be using on Freyna. For this setup, you only need these 4 modules for your boss build. And overall, only these 4 modules. You do not have to shoot with this weapon. This is completely a stat stick. All the skills of Freyna will do the damage for you. These 4 modules on your screen right now are the only 4 modules that will help out your Freyna. As for your 4, as we're going for double magazine modules with expand weapon charge and compulsive magazine, we're going for fire rate up, and we're going for sharp precision shot, what will give us an extra 40% fire rate within 5 seconds of holding the trigger down, and this is so incredibly good. Again, you can build this all the way up, as you can see, underneath the 50 module capacity. This is underneath the base, without an energy activator in there, and without any catalysts in here. If you want to shoot your weapon, I would go for the Freyna setup, as I call it, and then go for action reaction, rifle reinforcement to get your extra firearm attack in. I would work towards your crits, because this weapon is so incredibly high on its crits already. So we're going for better insight for the critical hit rate, we're going for better concentration for the critical hit damage, we're going for an extra critical hit rate and critical hit damage with insight focus, we're going for even more critical hit damage with concentration priority. And then I chose to go for Toxic Conductor. When attacking enemies inflicted with poison, what is always the case, we will raise our firearm attack by 26%. And of course, if you like to shoot, you want to shoot as long as possible, and that's why I'm using the double magazine modules again. And that's pretty much a built out version of the Secret Garden if you want to shoot with it. But again, it is not necessary. Everything dies around you with Freyna, with her skills. You want to put the poison around you. That's what you're building towards. So if we go back to the boss setup, these are the only modules that you need to, of course, give your 4 all of the extra damage possible. And that's pretty much it. A little longer video, but I wanted to showcase everything that Ultimate Freyna can do for you. From the base all the way up to the toughest colossi and or the toughest dungeons. Hit me up in the comments down below if you like this setup of a video, or would you love to see a little bit shorter videos but then multiple videos explaining just one single build, or is this setup with all the builds and of course the timestamps below in the description the better setup? I would love to hear your opinion, and of course hit that like button if you want to see more of these videos. And if you're new here and or of course want to be updated by the first Descendant, make sure to hit that subscribe button as well, and I will see you in the next one. Pure Prime out.